All right, hardcore people here. That's awesome. Before I get started, it's kind of like a script you have going here, trying to do this in 20 minutes, but I'm going to talk about leadership, and I'm going to talk about it from my position as a battalion chief, as a recognized leader, but you can do this for anything. Anyone who's going to be a leader, I think, will benefit from some of the things I'm going to talk about, because everybody is a leader, whether you have a family, or as has been said before, you get challenged at your station over something. You can choose to be the leader on these things. So, here we go. A couple of years ago, I was in a discussion with my brothers. We were both getting ready to become managers. And we both wanted a class to help us learn how to negotiate a number of things we knew we were going to get involved in as leaders. And these were things they won't talk about in formal classes. These are things that don't have easy answers, and mostly they're things no one wants to talk about. So when I decided to become a battalion chief, I had a fair reputation as a good firefighter and captain, and I basically had to set that aside, and any rapport that I had with my peers disappeared the first day I became a recognized leader. That all changed through nothing that I did, but simply because I took on a title called battalion chief. And that was kind of an idea of our class, is one of the things that you would face, and it's been talked about a little bit today, is what I'll call the us versus them mentality. That is that workers have an antagonism towards their bosses, and bosses have an antagonism towards their workers. It's just there, and it doesn't pay to not talk about it and not to have to deal with it. Some of that reputation is deserved. Most of it is very overblown. So that was kind of the thing my brother and I were talking about for an example, is we wanted to do something about that, is deal with those sort of ideas. And because of that, we decided to call our class Becoming One of Them, just kind of as a little bit funny pitch of what we were trying to do. So on a lark, I put that concept into a conference. It got accepted. I was asked to present, and I was also asked to do an article for it. And as I tried to do that, and I would encourage anybody who has a good idea, do an article. It's great to get your thoughts organized. As I was doing that, it came to me that one of the better ways to think about it was like this: the way we teach firefighter safety and survival skills across the country. Because even though as a supervisor, I don't work in an IDLH environment anymore, I'm here to tell you that I work in a hazard zone with leadership, and you will too. And is it Ray? Ray found that this morning. He works in a hazard zone that has nothing to do with a fire. And so I kind of worked that through, and I tried to paint it as a survival skill for leaders. Because basically, a lot of the things that I have to do as a leader, I get a lot of dilemmas that really challenge my career security and also my emotional stability. And when you find out what my family's like, you'll have some sympathy for me in that way too. So it's fair to ask, do we really need to do this? And let me tell you a little bit about my first 3 months as a BC. Because what I ended up having to deal with were two major disciplines, a fitness for action, or a fitness for duty action that lasted 6 months, and any number of dilemmas that came up that kept me up late into night because they didn't have easy answers. And I realized I was pretty overwhelmed. I had been a firefighter 25 years, bumping up through the ranks when I took the job. I thought I was ready, but I'll admit to you, I was really overwhelmed. And so I realized I didn't have enough training in some of these areas. And when I went to ask my peers and some other recognized leaders around, I discovered that they didn't have the training either. And they had just learned how to develop shooting from the hip to a high degree so that it worked. But they really couldn't teach you. So it just kind of helped me want to try and create this class a little bit more. Turned the article in, and the editor of the online magazine asked me if I wanted to do this as the front cover. And what I realized is she actually read my article. And my article is very positive, but this is exactly how I felt. Lost at sea, storm going, sharks all around, and only a dinky little life preserver to try and survive. I didn't have enough skills, and so I kind of wanted to figure that out. And I was able to focus this back down to the thought that what you were really trying to teach leaders is that you're going to end up swimming with sharks. That was kind of the idea. Now, sharks are not necessarily people. They do exist, but mostly they're ideas and perspectives that you got to fight. And we need a lot of skills and other ways to deal with those. And I thought back to my original training officer, who gave us these 3 things. He said, in anything you do, there's only 3 things you can do. You can quit, you can go with the flow, or you can try and change things. And in that analogy of swimming with sharks, there are times you do not want to go in the organizational waters. You are going to get eaten alive, and you got to recognize those times. We got to be able to teach people that. You can go with the flow and swim with them. And sometimes they're just not very hungry. They're not going to eat you up. The last thing you can do is try and change things. And you can do that, in this case with sharks, if they attack, you fight back. So sometimes you do have to fight back. So all those things can go on. And again, what it did for me is help to kind of really look at this concept for a class, in that there's nothing I can do about the size of an organization. There's nothing I can do about the storms that will come. There's nothing I can do about the dangers around me. But what I can do is try and create skills, or think about skills, or encourage people that have had this kind of training or have gone through this before to pass on their lessons learned as well. So the goal of leadership survival training is not just survival. It's not so you don't go home and kick the dog, yell at the kids, or have to go on beta blockers, high blood pressure meds. We want to try and create more effective leaders. And there's an art and a science to this, and you have to teach both. So with that, let me do a little bit of a dilemma to show how art and science goes together and maybe how this all fits. I think the essence of leadership is nothing more than getting people to do the things you need them to do. But here's the dilemma. No one likes to be told what to do. And what's the very first thing that someone's going to come up to you as a leader and say? Just tell me what to do. That's a dilemma. No one likes to be told, but they want you to tell them what to do. And so the science or the formal training will tell you that you need to be a good motivator. You need to be able to deal with all kinds of different people. There's all kinds of different strategies. But here's the art, is there are so many different people that you have to lead. They all are motivated by slightly different things. And here's the kicker. They all change with time. Your organization changes with time. And you, the leader, are going to change with time. That's where applying the art of leadership comes in. So, in my remaining time here, which I'm doing okay, that's good. I want to just talk about 3 skills that I've learned. There's a whole bunch of them out there. I am sure that I can learn a ton from all of you guys about things that you've learned as well. So here's the first one. This is a recruit class that I had take a test in the snow, and just to take a picture was fun. And they all did well. They all passed. Here's the first skill that I'll pass on, and this is another thing, is you're going to hear things that have already been said. So it's like a test. If you hear things you've already been said, I think they're pretty important. As a leader, you have to gain trust and respect. You can make people do a lot of things in a lot of different ways. You can rule by fear. You can try and be popular. You can rule by force of personality if you have that. You can carry the rule book around and beat people over the head with it and tell them to obey. But none of those things will last. They will work to a degree, but none of them will last. What you really need to do is gain trust and respect, because that lasts. So that's a question. How do you gain trust and respect? And as Mark von Oppen said, you got to give it. So the next question, how do you give it? Let me make a couple suggestions. I read a book, and I read a lot of books. This one was called In Extremis Leadership, written by an instructor from West Point. And he took professions and sports, and he categorized them into 2 places, dangerous and non-dangerous. Dangerous being that you could get injured or killed in just the normal activity of whatever you're doing. In the non-dangerous sports and professions, the followers said that what they wanted out of a leader was to be a motivator. They wanted a cheerleader. They wanted to know why they should do what the organization is asking them. In the dangerous ones, you don't have to be motivated to stay alive or not get killed. What they wanted was a leader who knew what they were doing. It seems kind of apparent. But leaders need to be really good at their jobs, because that's when they'll get people to trust and respect them. It's not hard to know how to do that as a leader. You just put your time in. You got to keep learning. And what that does to your followers is they trust the fact that you care about them enough to know what you're doing. You're not going to put them ignorantly or knowingly into a bad situation. And they see you learning. They respect the commitment you have and the time that you're putting into it. And those things will help them to trust and respect you more. A second idea here is buy-in. Already talked about lots of ways to do buy-in. In team building, you have to get people to lay aside their personal goals and agendas and buy into something bigger than that, some unifying principle. Again, lots of ways to do it. I suggest that you do two things. Number one is tell them why. Explain why they should buy in. Explain why they should lay aside their personal goals and agendas for whatever it is you're trying to get them to do. That gives them a sense of ownership. The second thing is to be able to allow them to make decisions about their future. And what that does is allow them to feel a sense of control over what they're doing. What you're doing is empowering them. We've heard that before. What you're doing is educating them. And what that ends up doing is, again, they respect you because you're willing to tell them things. It's not just do it because I say so. It's, I would like you to do it or just do it because of this. They respect that you're telling them. The other thing is they, again, trust you because you're giving them the opportunity to make decisions. It's not just your game. The last thing in this is don't ever forget that you're just a part of the team. Leadership is important, but it's just a part of the team. And don't ever give up an opportunity to be a part of the team. I had a chance to be around a retired Major General from the Marine Corps recently. Someone made the point that probably the food in the general's mess was pretty good. He said, I always ate with the troops. I always ate what they ate. I always ate last, and there were times I didn't eat because the troops come first. Don't let a time go by to get that you're not willing to get dirty with your folks. If they're loading hose, load hose. If they're washing the rig, wash the rig. They know you have other things to do. But when you're being a part of the team, that really helps them to trust and respect you. In the end, there are a lot of things that you'll ask them to do that they won't like, but if they trust and respect you, you're just going to have an easier time to get them to do things, and they're going to do higher quality work. A second skill is what I'll call being an active listener. Again, said by Mark von Oppen earlier. You got to be a good communicator to be and this you can read that, that's communicated pretty well from an old Air Force base. You got to be a good communicator to be a good leader. And in order to be a good communicator, you have to be a good listener. And I believe the best listeners I know are active listeners. And really, again, what they do is they're very good at asking questions, clarifying questions. When someone is trying to explain something to you, it pays to try and understand them. And if you're good at asking questions, you'll get to the point. The other thing you can do is help that person to explain what they're trying to say if you learn how to ask questions that well. And I find anymore, and I don't know if you do too, most communication with people is competitive. No one's listening to anybody else. Everybody is just trying to get their 2 cents out. And so that's another thing that an active listener can do is they can control the conversation so they don't devolve into debates and arguments. Now, another thing about active listening, how many of you have ever been taught how to detect deception or dismissiveness? So deception is, do you know when people are lying to you? Do you know when they're being less than honest to you? Do you know when they're trying to make something better than it really is? And dismissiveness, just like Mark von Oppen's example of his dad with the Packers, who are your allies? Who is going to back you, and can you tell by what how they answer your questions? Real quickly, a couple books, Spy the Lie, Get the Truth. They're all about how to listen to people's answers and detect whether someone is lying to you. Very quickly, if you had to go out and do an interview on someone that's accused of stealing something, what you would expect them to say if they were not guilty is they would just tell you, I didn't do it. They would supply an explanation, or better yet, they'll hand you documentation from an incident report that says what they did and the people to talk to verify. That's what a reasonable person would do. But if you ask somebody and their answer back is something like, I would never do that, or what kind of person do you think I am? They're not answering the question. And what those books say is if they couple an answer, so if you ask them again and now they say, but I give to charity all the time. Those are ways to detect when people are being deceptive. Less than honest to me, basically listen to people's vocabulary. Why are they trying to make something better than it is? My favorite vocabulary word in the fire service is the term seamless. What does it mean? Has anybody here ever done anything seamlessly in their life? So why does it get said all the time? To me, it's a selling point. The last thing is this dismissiveness very quickly. Someone could look at you, have eye contact, nod in all the appropriate places, and when they answer, you know they are not paying attention. You know they are not going to back your play. You know they are not going to be an ally. And what that helps you to do is know who else to talk to, or just to give it a rest for a while, because nothing's going to happen. Now, the last area of this is basically to embrace peer review. And the very first peer that you have to listen to is yourself. You have to be very good at honest self-evaluation as a leader. You have to think about your thoughts, your actions, and your words, and understand if you're doing the right thing. I know for me, if I ever feel like I have more control than I really do, I look at something like this. I just got back from southeastern Utah. This is Canyonlands. I don't have to look very long at that to know that I'm pretty small in the scheme of things. It helps me stay humble. Humility is knowing your real place in the scheme of things. George Carlin used to do a great bit on the arrogance of mankind. YouTube it. It's hilarious, because one thing he says in there is one day the earth is just going to shake off humankind like a bad case of fleas. All of this stuff can help you get a real taste of your true importance at your workplace and really what you can and cannot control. On that same line, there's a thing called the disciplines that was built by the Jesuits. I'm not telling anyone to go be a priest, but it's a wonderful thing. And one part of the disciplines was before you go to bed, you review your day. What you did right, what you didn't do right, and what you didn't do. That helps put your day in context and get you ready for the next day. And I think it's a great way. That's called reflection, taking your experiences and thinking about them so that you get better. So eventually, what you really need to do is talk to other people as well. And a lot of people ask me what kind of leader I am, and I always tell them, go talk to the people I lead. They'll tell you what kind of leader I am, and I'll accept their answer. If you really want to know what I'm like, ask these guys. That's 5 of my daughters and 1 granddaughter. And that's when I was saying, you'll understand about some of the things that go on in my family dynamic. They will be brutally honest because that's how they've been trained. They will tell you what I do good and what I don't do well. Go out there and talk to your peers. Go talk to your subordinates. Ask them how you're doing. Ask them what you do well. Ask them how you need to improve. And that expectations talk, just like I'll just reinforce it again, what Mark von Oppen said. When you go out there, when I have an expectations talk, the first thing I do is I ask the person, what do you expect of me as a boss? And I take them seriously, and that helps them to understand that their opinion matters. So where do you go to get this kind of training? Real briefly, become an avid reader. There are lots of people out there that are willing to share their experience, and there is probably somebody out there who's going through the same issue or problem you are as a leader. Your pain and your issue is real, but it's not unique. Someone out there has already written about it. If you don't want to read, go be an active listener. There are a ton of speeches and classes on YouTube, and even from the dead, the people who aren't alive anymore, you can hear from them. Get into good group discussions, face-to-face discussions. And one thing that I'll really mention is the greatest fire department tool is the kitchen table. Do not let the kitchen table, where we gather around a meal and really train each other how to be firefighters and all the way that means, the history of your department, the experiences people have had, you want to save that. And, technology is great, but this thing is killing the kitchen table. I'm not against cell phones, but I wish we could put a new mode on this, right next to airplane mode, called kitchen table mode, just for 20 minutes, just for half an hour. Those group discussions are the best places to learn in the fire service. Do not let that tradition go away. Learn to be reflective, listen to folks, and be a keen observer of life, because you never know when you're going to have a lesson in leadership that you can take on board, and then pass it on. So, this is what I'm going to end with, and this is a quote. When leadership is right, you don't see it anymore. I got this from a book called First, Fast, and Fearless. Think about it for a second. Take this home with you. What does it mean to you? And what it means to me is leadership is just a part of the team. It's just a part of the organization. Staggeringly important, but just a part. And when it's right, it melts into the team. Because you know exactly who the leader is with that team. You know exactly who everybody is following. But that person doesn't have to tell you they're the leader. They don't have to sit there and tell you about their accomplishments. They don't have to tell you what they're going to do in the future, because they're just busy leading. So, thanks a lot for the invitation. Appreciate the time and you guys sticking around. Have a nice night.
When you find yourself in harm's way, ergonomics is about more than just comfort. It is imperative to getting your job done safely. That's why we've designed the MSA G1 SCBA with critical ergonomic principles in mind. To begin, we've removed all electronics from the facepiece, stripping away excess bulk and weight. This not only makes the facepiece more comfortable to wear, but it also reduces snag hazards, provides an increased field of view, and an improved range of motion. In addition, an open port design allows you to breathe easier and communicate more clearly when off air. We have also modified the G1's backplate. By repositioning electronics and pneumatics content, we were able to lower the center of gravity, increasing stability, reducing snag hazards, and improving your overall ability to pivot and flex, providing you with a greater range of motion. We have also created a design that is symmetrical, maximizing balance and stability. We've consulted with many of you about the G1 harness, and we've made some improvements there, like upgrading our shoulder straps. To prevent them from moving out of position, we have strategically placed friction pads so that once the SCBA has been donned, the shoulder straps will remain in place. In addition, we've also increased the width of our shoulder straps to expand the area of contact and reduce pressure points on your shoulders. Another key feature is our swiveling lumbar pad. Because of its design, the G1 moves with you and keeps the weight properly positioned so that you can maneuver more effortlessly. Beyond the swiveling functionality, there is also an optional adjustable lumbar pad mechanism. With 3 different positions, the adjustable lumbar pad can accommodate varying torso lengths. This allows the G1 to be customized to each user, ensuring the weight is properly distributed across the hips and shoulders, and making sure the SCBA stays in place while you are working. Ultimately, the MSA G1's unique ergonomic design is not solely about enhanced mechanisms and maximized functionality. It's about how all of those things work together to help you get your job done. Because when you go in, we go in with you. The G1 SCBA. Contact your local sales manager to learn more.